Welcome back to another episode of the Sky Society podcast. Today, I am so excited to be chatting with Courtney Bailey. She's the Global Nonprofit and Election Marketing Manager at Meta. Welcome, Courtney.
Thank you so much. Excited to be here.
So excited to have you here. We are going to jump into your entire career journey. But before we go into all that fun stuff, can you tell me a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Absolutely. So I am a global marketing manager at Meta, leading the election nonprofit categories. My team owns the insights-driven global aspiration and positioning for government, elections, and nonprofits. So really, ultimately, we take a very insights-driven approach to our marketing. We drive transformative storytelling. We guide our audience through full funnel journeys. And we really do this through our marketing packages. So that includes any sort of booklets, narrative decks. We also do this through website, blog, newsletter, and our amazing global scaled events too.
Wow, a lot all packed in there. So you're managing multiple different marketing channels on a global scale. And then specifically for this nonprofit and election segment, can you explain to me what that is?
Absolutely. So our audience focuses on marketing practitioners. So you can think of a digital marketing manager at a small nonprofit or even a large nonprofit, and then also campaign managers for candidates running for office. So this could be a large national election or even a small state and local type of election. But our audience really are those marketing practitioners and marketing leaders at these organizations.
Interesting. That's a very, very niche space to be in. I had no idea that that was even like a segment you could specialize in.
Yes, it is very niche. It is amazing, though, and it is incredible work that we do for elections and nonprofits, specifically for me, but of course, all of my colleagues who work on the government marketing space as well.
How crazy is it around election time?
It is busy. It is very busy. It is something new every single day. This year, we focused on 5 high priority global elections. So everything from the Philippines to Brazil, of course, US midterms to France, India. So a lot of elections, and it's really incredible to see democracy truly come out and to support all types of candidates, from young candidates to women to men to older candidates. And again, these are all at different scales. So national, state, local, down to mayors. So it's amazing. It's a lot of work, but really, truly incredible.
I know I didn't think about that at first, but you're doing it on the global scale. So it's not just like the US election ones every 4 years.
Yes.
It's all of the elections. Wow. And then are you also on the team? I know like with Meta, there's been a lot of like responsibility, like social responsibility on Meta when it comes to elections, like ensuring that all of the ads are, speaking about true information. Is that what your team deals with, or are you not so much focused on that part?
I am not truly focused on that part, but I do work with the team who is focused on it. So I work really closely with the team, including also comms, legal, and policy, of course, to create marketing collateral such as blogs to get out that information. So to help candidates and their teams understand how they can become authorized to run social issues, elections, and political ads across the Meta platforms.
So are there more steps like for nonprofits and for like election managers to be approved to run ads on Facebook?
It's the same process regardless if you're elections or nonprofits, but it is quite the process to become authorized, but it's also fairly easy too, as long as you have the right materials and information.
Yeah. Okay. Amazing. Wow. Such a cool little space to be in. But let's rewind a little bit before we get to like your amazing job here at Meta, of how you got here. So I think your first like big stint in marketing was at Smith Buckland. Is that correct?
That is correct. I did have some internships before, but that was my first quote unquote big girl job.
Ooh, big girl job. I love it. So tell me a little bit about what you like did and learned at Smith Buckland.
Yes. So I started at Smith Buckland in January 2015, right after I graduated. And leading up to graduation, I knew that I was going to move to DC, but I had no idea what I was going to do at all. I was applying to every and all job that I could find. I have never heard of Smith Buckland, honestly, before I applied there. And I got a call back. That was one of the only interviews that I landed. I had an interview for an internship at Edelman, and this interview at Smith Buckland for a full-time job for a marketing and communications associate. So I had no idea also what that meant. I did not know what a marketing and communications associate did. I had no idea how to interview. So I immediately went to some of my professors at the University of North Carolina at Charlotte to ask them, really, how do I interview? What do I do? How do I prepare? And I put together all of the materials that I did throughout my internship and brought that to the interview. And of course, in the interview, I learned a little bit more about what I would potentially be doing. But it turned out that I was able to get the job. And actually, funny enough, 8 years ago yesterday, I saw on this day on Facebook that I got my full offer letter. I was just thinking how crazy that was. But at Smith Buckland, I was initially a communications associate. So really that meant that I had a book of business. Basically, I was internally, but had a book of business of associations that I would work on and help with their marketing. And our two biggest things that we did at Smith Buckland was focusing on event marketing and then also membership marketing. Since these are associations, they really get most of their revenue through memberships and through events. And so my favorite client was Lamaze, because we were able to launch a mobile app for women who are pregnant or just found out that they are pregnant, and able to go through their entire pregnancy on the app to find out how large their baby is, what some side effects are, so on and so forth. But I was there for about 3.5 years and was able to get promoted a couple of times. And I really enjoyed my time there. And I learned a ton in terms of coding, in terms of project management, how to talk to leaders. I was in meetings with executive directors of these associations, and I was only 21, 22 at the time. I had no idea what I was doing, but I was able to really just listen and learn from all of these associations, and especially the executive directors.
I think the sign of a good like first job is when you come out of it saying, I learned so much, because I think that is absolutely what is important to value even now. But I think most importantly, when you're young and starting your career, is being in a position where you are getting to learn a ton. So by the end of your time there, you've grown so much. Instead of just doing a job where you feel comfortable with all the responsibilities, it's so important to be pushed. I want to go and talk about really quickly at the beginning. You mentioned that you like got to get the job when you were interviewing. You put together like you brought examples of all of your past work. Did you put that together into like a type of portfolio?
I did. I bought a 3-ringed binder. I don't know if those still exist, but I did buy one and printed out all of the press releases that I did at Novant Health. I printed out pamphlets that I put together at Eric Mower and Associates. So from all of my internships, I printed everything, put it in this binder to really show the work that I was doing as an intern. And I think that really helps when you're trying to get your first job, to show that you have been in the real world, that you know how to critically think, how you know how to put together briefs for executives. So I think that was crucial in my interview process.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the version of that today is creating an online digital version of that. But I always say it's such a great way to stand out in your applications, because not many people think to go and actually do that.
Definitely.
Okay, so you had this incredible role at Smith Buckland. You learned a ton. You were there for just over 3 years, and then you went over to In Pursuit of. Can you tell me a little bit about what you did there?
Yes. So I was at Smith Buckland for about 3.5 years, as I said. And during that time, I also decided to get my master's. And so I knew that Smith Buckland wasn't going to be my full gig for the rest of my career. It was 100% a great starting point, but I knew that I wanted more. I wanted to be challenged a little bit more. So I went on to get my master's, and throughout that time, I just started thinking about maybe some other jobs, like what's out there. Been here for 3.5 years, maybe I can go somewhere else. I randomly found In Pursuit Of. I think that's a huge kind of red thread throughout my career of randomly finding jobs online
Mhm.
and just applying to them. And similarly to Smith Buckland, put together a portfolio, and different for In Pursuit Of, I put together a media plan for just In Pursuit Of. I did not know, again, what In Pursuit Of was, but I did some research and said, okay, here's this media plan that I'm going to put together and present in my interview. And at In Pursuit Of, I was the digital marketing lead for Concerned Veterans for America, and completely revamped their digital profiles from Facebook to their website to Twitter. So really just driving that digital marketing. And it was fantastic. I wasn't there that long, but I was there for about 9 months to a year. And again, learned a lot. I think my biggest thing that I learned at In Pursuit Of was being an advocate for your career. I unfortunately had a manager who was not great. He did not listen to me. He did not appreciate women. And I really had to speak up and learn how to speak up. And at that time, it was the biggest career moment that I could possibly have, and something that I take with me now throughout my career.
Let's tell me a little bit more, if you could share a little bit more about, you don't need to go into specifics if you don't feel comfortable about what happened, but that speaking up piece, because I've been in, when I started out my career, and I think you were still pretty young at this age, I had a lot of things happen to me that should not have happened, but in the moment, things happen so quickly that you don't know what to say or if you should say anything. And I do this segment in my my marketing boot camp, Sky Accelerator, where we talk about different workplace scenarios, and I'll ask girls like, okay, what would you do in this scenario? And a lot of girls will just say like, oh, I would walk away from the situation, or I would not engage. And I always tell them that by not engaging, you're allowing that person to think that what they're doing is still okay, and that it's so important to speak up. So if you could just touch like a little bit more on kind of what you did there, I would love to hear more.
Absolutely. I think I was in the same boat as a lot of young women, honestly, of my manager is really owning my career at that point in time. He was the one that would be giving me my reviews, telling me if I got promoted or not. And so it was very hard for me to speak up. I would go home and complain to my husband, complain to my mom and dad about it, but I wasn't doing anything in the moment. And I think the biggest thing that I learned, and to what you just said, is to speak up. And now with everything on Zoom, don't be afraid to unmute yourself in a meeting, to chime in with your thoughts. Don't wait until after the meeting to write a follow-up email or just ping someone with your idea. Just say it in the moment, because you have no idea how that could possibly change your entire career. And I think also if your manager is not listening to you or does not really appreciate your thoughts or ideas, go to your skip manager and say, hey, I'm really not being heard, and can you help me, or can you give me advice on how I can possibly be heard in some meetings? Same with any sort of mentors too. If you have a mentor, go to them and ask for advice, but do not be afraid to speak up, because I think that's the biggest thing, is if you don't speak up, everyone's going to think that it's okay, and you're honestly just going to keep sulking and be upset and not get anywhere. So it's very important to speak up.
Yeah, and I wish like I would have. I wish I. There's always so many things I wish like, oh, I wish I would have said something or done something.
Yes.
Looking back on it now, but there's so many ways that you can speak up for, because I feel like the fear around speaking up is like that, like, or at least for me, it was like, oh, am I overreacting? Am I making like too big a deal out of this than it really is? Or are they going to think that I'm being too, I mean, I don't know if the word is like aggressive, or I guess it's going to come off the wrong way. I would say like Lean In has such great resources. They have a bunch of different like workplace scenarios, and they'll even address like how specifically to answer it. And the way that they do it, I feel like is so great, because it's never in like a combative way. It's more of a like just how to bring attention to something. And I think like
Right.
a neutral standpoint.
Yeah.
But
And
go ahead.
I think too that as women, we feel like we might be coming off as too aggressive, when in actuality, we're not. We're just speaking our mind, and we're trying to own our career and be our own advocate. And it's okay. It's okay to speak up. You're not going to be aggressive, and it really can change your career for the better.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So if you're listening to this and there's something that you're not saying at work because you're afraid what your boss is going to think about it, this is your sign to speak up and say something.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, so what made you decide that you wanted to take the leap and move over to Meta?
Honestly, it was my manager. I did not want to really deal with him anymore. I did not feel like it would be the right place for me to stay long term. I have always been very passionate and career driven, and I knew that I wanted to keep moving up regardless of the company I was at. And I knew I had to get out of there. And so I just started applying any and all jobs. And I started searching jobs at Facebook, jobs at Google, jobs at Twitter, and saw that all of these companies are in DC. And of course, this was before COVID, so I didn't even think of any sort of virtual jobs. And I saw that Facebook, of course, at the time, had this job open that was a government politics and advocacy marketing manager. And I'm like, okay, I work in advocacy now. And I'm going through all of the job requirements. I'm like, I do this now. I can do this job. And I applied to it, did not know anyone, just really sent my resume into what I thought would be a black hole. And a couple of weeks later, I got an email from a recruiter saying that they would like to have a conversation with me. And I remember exactly where I was. And I remember taking a screenshot of that email, sending it over to my mom, my dad, my husband, and my dad responded, "Are you sure that this isn't spam?" I'm like, "No, I don't think so. Maybe." And I responded to the email with my availability. And I remember taking all of my interviews either from open conference rooms or from Starbucks right down the street from the office. And I just felt like that was where I needed to be. And so I prepped so much for all of those interviews. And I recently found similarly a portfolio that I put together for this interview, but it was a full marketing plan on what we needed to be doing. I had no idea what the current team was doing, but I just put together this plan of really what I wanted to do and what I thought we needed to do. And I think that that really helped me get where I am, get my current job. But really, ultimately, I just knew that In Pursuit Of was a great starting point for me, but not where I ultimately needed to be. So I started looking.
Can you tell me a little more about how you prepared for interviews? Because I find this to be a common thread when I talk to guests, is they'll mention like how they really, really prepared. And I feel like this is like often an undervalued piece of the application process. Is like we think like, oh, we got the interview, like they're just gonna ask me about me. Like, what do I really need to prepare about me? Like I know me. But I do know that this is like super, super key. So what were some of the things that you did, or what are some advice do you have for people on how they can better prepare for interviews?
I spend hours preparing for interviews, and I'm not even kidding when I say hours. I research every single thing about the company, everything from the mission to revenue to what they're doing, news articles, and really take the time to understand the company. So that's a very high level looking at the company. And then I review the job description bullet point by bullet point, and I try to make it a point to try to connect everything that's in the job description with what I have experience with. So if something, for example, says build and maintain a website. Okay, I've done that, and I can list 3 examples of how I have done that in previous roles or previous internships. So really just taking the time to truly prep and understand what the job is and how you have either done what is saying in the job description or ideas on how you can do that in the new role, I think is crucial. And then I do think that preparing any sort of portfolio or something tangible that you can hand to either a recruiter or to a hiring manager is very important too, because it shows that you care about the job, that you're putting in some more thought other than just, all right, here's my answers to your questions. You're saying, no, this is what I've done, and these are my ideas for this job too. So I think just taking the time to really understand the company, seeing how your current experience maps up to the job description, and then building a portfolio to tangibly hand to any sort of person that you're interviewing with is very important.
Amazing. I love all of that. What about tips for building portfolios? Do you have any to share?
Yes, tips for building portfolios. So I think, well, for my most recent one for Facebook, now Meta, I built a marketing plan. And the marketing plan that I built was actually a template that we used in grad school at GW for my MBA. And it was just a marketing plan. So very simple, but it took me a couple of hours to do because again, you have to think about it. You can't just put something together. So it depends on the role that you're applying to. You can either put something together that shows all of your work that you've done. So if you're applying to a PR role, maybe putting some of the press releases that are already out there that you can easily print out or easily put into a digital portfolio and send off to recruiters. Or if it's some sort of marketing role and you need to really show analytics or KPIs, building that out into a quick spreadsheet, printing that out or sending it in a digital portfolio is really important too. So it depends on really what the job is. But if you're able to show anything, just something that you've done, that is going to be very important too.
Yeah, even just having something to turn in or like to add is more than most people do. And so yeah, I'm a huge advocate for portfolios. So I love that you said that was kind of one of the other things that helped you because it's not easy to get a job at Meta. So you definitely got to do something special to get noticed and to be seen. And so I think what you said is like taking a really long time to prepare, like hours to prepare, like you would study for a test, like you are studying for those interviews, and then adding a portfolio or doing a marketing plan or something to really, really make you stand out and be noticed, I think are two amazing tips.
Definitely.
And then, so now that you are working at Meta, what are like, has there or have there been any big transition steps for you working at such a huge company now? Like, is there anything that's harder for you or more different going from, average size company to a giant company like Meta?
Yes, the number of XFMs that I work with, so cross-functional partners, is insane because the company is so big. And so I feel like honestly, every single week I meet with someone new. And even just yesterday, I met with this woman in Menlo Park and she works on education marketing. And we only met for 30 minutes, but we were able to figure out at least 3 different ways that we can collaborate together in 2023. So really just taking the time to meet people, I think is very important and something that I really had to learn how to do, to build those connections, to take time to genuinely meet people and to genuinely understand where they are coming from is going to take your career to the next level because it shows that you really care. I mean, of course, you can do that in an authentic way, but if you are authentic and you do genuinely care about people and building relationships, that's going to just help you take your career to the next level or to help get you promoted because you're going to have all of these connections.
How do you do that? So I'm imagining that the number of marketing roles at Meta is like insane. Like your title I've never heard of. I'm sure there's dozens and dozens of more that I had no idea ever existed, which I think is really cool. Like part of this podcast is to show that, hey, like there are so many opportunities for you in marketing outside of what you are taught in school. When you come across someone like that, what are kind of the steps that you take to initiate like that coffee chat or to take it from just oh hi, introduce yourself to like that next level of turning it into a relationship?
Yeah, I take a lot of time to actually go through the org charts and be like, okay, I'm currently working on this project. Is there someone else in the company that's working on something similar or maybe has worked on this before that I can just kind of pick their brain and understand where they're coming from or how they completed a similar project? And really, I just reach out to people and be like, hey, I'm Courtney. I'm a government and politics nonprofits manager. And I sit within global business marketing under my manager. And do you just have 30 minutes to meet with me to talk to me about what you're working on? I would love to understand more and see how we can possibly collaborate. I feel like Meta is such a place for collaboration. And it's something that I really value about the company because I have not come across a person who has responded no to me in terms of wanting to collaborate. And it's just 30 minutes. So how can 30 minutes really ruin anything. It can only make things better. So I really just take the time to reach out to people, and it is truly genuine. I want to understand how people work, what other teams are doing. So that way I can just make my team better and make our teams more efficient. And recently there was about 10 to 12 different people in the company who were working on election marketing. So I found all these people, connected the dots, and created an election marketing cohort. And we meet on a monthly basis, and we really just talk about what we're doing. We have different audiences, but at the end of the day, we're working on election marketing. So how can we connect the dots and collaborate to ensure that we're going to market with one message, and possibly work on maybe a few different projects that we initially didn't have planned. And it's been really beneficial to understand what other teams do and where other teams are coming from. We all have different strengths. We all have different weaknesses. We all have different priorities. But at the end of the day, we're working for the same company. So why not come together and make things better?
One of the things I love about your career journey so far, Courtney, is that you never just wait for things to happen. You are always taking initiative to like start something. Like you haven't even been at Meta for that long, and you're telling me already that you started a cohort for everyone in election marketing, that you're going through the org charts and you're setting up meetings, and that to get these jobs, you went above and beyond and you did things that were not asked of you. And I think that from my perspective has been really key to your growth and your success track so far, is it because I think most people do what is expected or do what they're asked. And it's really clear that you are doing so much more than that, which I absolutely love.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Yes, and I think it's such a good lesson to learn for everyone who's listening, is that if you just do what's expected of you, then you can only expect average results. And that if you want a job at Meta, which is really hard to get, that you can't just do what everyone else is doing, that it really does require going above and beyond. If you want, and like you said, you want to keep moving forward and moving up. And if you want that to happen, again, you can't just be doing the average and performing in the middle on your team. I think it takes those extra initiatives to get there.
100%. And I think it's so important to have also those conversations with your manager too. If you want to stay middle of the road, cool, great, perfect. You stay middle of the road. If you want to continue to get promoted or become a people manager, or maybe your ultimate goal is to become a CMO, who knows what your ultimate goal is, but you need to have those conversations with your manager and just be blunt with it. So I think that goes back to us saying about speaking up. Just don't be afraid to explicitly say to your manager, hey, I want to get promoted, or hey, I want to become a people manager. I mean, of course, you have to have a reason to back that up. Maybe it's, hey, I've been at this level for a couple of years now. I believe through XYZ that I've been performing at the next level. How can I work with you to get to that next level? And your manager is just going to give you a couple of ideas, and you have to really take it and run with it. And so building that marketing cohort started as a small idea with my manager, and I'm like, okay, I think I can do this. I think I can connect the dots and build this cohort and get everyone together. And at first it was very awkward. It was like, okay, hi, I work on this, you work on that. Our goals are kind of the same. I don't know if we should work together, but let's just try it out. So the first meeting was so awkward, but after that, it's like, okay, we got the ball rolling. What else can we do? And how can we partner together? So I do think that it's just important to talk to your manager and tell them how you want to own your career and what you want to do.
Are you already having talks with your current manager about where you want to go next?
Yes, I have gotten promoted a couple of times, and I have explicitly told my manager what I want to do. So I have said that I do want to get promoted again. I have also told her that I do want to become a people manager. And I have a very lofty goal of becoming a marketing director at Meta in 5 to 8 years. And so I'm saying that out in the universe so
We're
it can
manifesting
happen.
it. In 5 to 8 years, you'll listen to this episode and you'll be a people manager or or director, and you'll say, I manifested it on the podcast.
Absolutely. And so I think that it's just important to really have those conversations. So yes, I have explicitly told my manager what I want to do, and have talked to her about ideas on how I can get there. And it's hard. It's not easy. Lately, my manager has been giving me tips on how to get to that next level. I'm like, okay, how do I do this? I don't know how I can possibly take on another project or expand this project to more marketers. But if you really take the time to think about that, it's going to pay off in the long run.
And I think what you said again about speaking, like telling people what you want, like telling your manager where you want to be. I feel like there's sometimes fear around that of like, oh, and again, I feel like this goes back to being women. It's like, oh, am I being too pushy? And you are absolutely not. It's so important. And I think why it's so important to talk to your manager about it before you actually go up and ask for that promotion is also so that there's kind of like some accountability on your manager's part where you were like, hey, you told me that this is what I had to do, and I went and I did those things. And then you're coming to them with the asking promotion, not out of the blue saying like, hey, I want to be here now. You're like, hey, we've been talking about this for a while. You told me to do these steps, and now I've actually gone and done them. And that's, I think, gonna work so much better for you than just waiting and not mentioning or bringing it up anytime before.
Yeah. And I also want to say it's not easy to ask your manager for a promotion. In our touch point conversations, which we call it Meta, are basically half year check-ins with your manager, talk about career, how you're doing, and so on and so forth. I checked the box of I want to talk about getting promoted. And I remember unchecking that box initially and be like, I don't know if I should talk about this. I'm like, no, I have to own my career. I do want to get promoted. So I need to check that box to make sure that my manager knows that I want to talk about that in our touch point conversation. And I was terrified. I was sweating. I wrote like all of these notes on why I should get promoted or why I want to get promoted. And it's not easy. It's really hard to have those conversations, but it is so crucial for your long-term career.
I love it. Amazing. Okay, Courtney, do you have any last piece of advice for women in marketing who are looking to someday build a marketing career like yours?
I would say probably my last piece of advice would definitely be to apply to every and all job, no matter where you are in your career, even if you're not fully qualified for that job, just apply to it. You don't know what's going to happen, what's going to come out of that job or that interview and where that can really take you. So I think it's so important to apply to every and all job. I think Smith Buckland got me the job at In Pursuit of, and In Pursuit of got me the job at Facebook, now Meta. And so it's just important to apply and to keep those connections too with any sort of recruiters or anyone that you previously worked with, because that can just help you in the future too.
Such great wisdom to share at the end. Apply to the job, even if you don't feel like you meet the qualifications. You never know where it's going to take you. You may think it's going into the abyss of hundreds and hundreds of job applications, but it just takes one person to notice you to get that opportunity. So again, Courtney, thank you so much. It has been so much fun going through your journey. I think you shared so much advice. I was like taking notes, and I think we went over so much stuff. So thank you for sharing all of your wisdom. It was so much fun chatting with you.
Yes, thank you so much for having me today.